statements are separate, I don't understand what the problem is. I don't know what that's a problem with me.
Are you familiar with oxymoron?
Oh God! All right, yeah, man, yeah. I know what an oxymoron is.
Okay, so do you not? So you're accusing me of being socially inept right now. Well, it's also being the case that you're missing out on the implication of you presenting an oxymoron. It's like when you have the BUT, just like however. That's sort of operated there. Yeah, BUT. It's when you say but.
The only thing I did was
I'm confused. Stop interject. Stop. Just stop talking. You look dumb. You look dumb when you look. I know you don't give a shit. I'm explaining to you why you just continuously present yourself as a confused idiot.
And you're local muted. Holy shit.
Yeah. Did you just run away that easily?
Person. Here, I'll join you guys.
Anyways,
all right, are we queuing?
I think he's. I'm gonna say that right.
Wait, what were you saying he was confused on?
I said based on the interaction, it seems like he's confused often.
You said he made maybe he made a statement that was like representative of an oxymoron. Maybe he
said when I said based off of this interaction, I said that he seems confused often, and then he read that out and I was like, oh, I'm confused, but you're not even talking. That seems like an oxymoron, or at least to present an oxymoron that I presented.
So maybe I'm not understanding, but where is the oxymoron trace?
Okay, so the oxymoron, to label what I said as an oxymoron as something that is apparently contradictory, it's when you use the but, like BUT or however. Those are things that are in contrast to a previous implication. Like, you could say, well, I am a Republican.
No, I'm aware of what an oxymoron is. I'm just asking for where that was referenced.
It was referenced. The implication is him implying that I used an oxymoron, where I said, "Okay, I'm confused, but you're the one not talking." That seems to imply that the fact that I'm not talking lends less credence to the fact that he's confused, or invalidate my invalidate. Stop.
Well,
I just asked you a question.
Archie, I don't understand why you're even talking with him. I asked him.
No, I don't. I'm not even under the impression he's being bad faith. I was just curious to what he's saying because I'm not seeing the oxymoron here, and he's not.
Yeah, I can type it out. I can type it out.
Yeah, no wait, Archie.
Yeah,
you understand?
Bruce,
shut up. Bruce, shut up.
Yeah.
Just
because presumably, if he said that you're saying that you're typing, but I'm confused. He could be pointing to maybe a scenery of irony. Maybe he's simply not even saying that this is contradictory. Maybe he commits to the belief that you can be completely clear while still be typing, but he just finds it silly that you're typing. You know?
Yeah.
There's many different alternatives other than having a contradictory belief or committing to a statement that seems to entail two contradictory beliefs. That's what an oxymoron is.
I didn't say that it was contradictory.
Well, you define an oxymoron as something that's apparently contradictory. So to claim something's prima facie contradictory. Yeah, so obviously if you're saying something's intuitively contradictory, that means something registered amongst your background assumption that you didn't really have to process all the way to say that it was contradictory. But committing to the fact that it's contradictory entails that it appeared that he held two different contradictory claims. And he only said that was entailed by the fact that he said, hang on for a second. And he only said that was entailed by the fact that he said, yeah, I'm confused, but you're typing. Like you're making the claim that but in itself implies these contradictory terms. So I'm just asking you to elucidate that for us.
Archie, can you hear me?
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Shut up. Bruce, shut up. You're
I don't know why you're telling him to shut up.
Bruce, you walked away.
All he asked is I can hear him.
I can explain why I'm telling him to shut up. It's
you can explain.
You muted the person he was talking to, and then he ran away, and now he wants to just interject. Now, if you want
he doesn't have you local muted anymore.
Bruce interjecting, that would be much more productive.
I have him local muted because I just.
If you'd like, I don't mind. I just want to elucidate that. Oh. Well, I'm not in any beef. I'm just curious because I'm not really saying.
I'm not calling you a bitch. I'm calling him a bitch.
No, I know, Bruce. I'm just saying, I'm still not saying this.
Yeah, here. Do we agree on the definition of oxymoron? So if you look at Bruce, shut up. Bruce, shut up.
You're just saying a figure of speech which is apparently a contradictory.
Yep, that's what I said. So we agree, right? Okay.
So yeah, you're the appraiser. I'm going to acknowledge and appreciate your language.
Okay, good. I just wanted to get clear that we agree on what an oxymoron is. Yeah, Bruce, you're interjecting. I don't know why you're commenting on something that you can't even hear.
Generally, when an appraiser presents a claim or some belief,
before you continue,
I'm always going to appreciate
your claims. To interject. Bruce, I don't know if you can hear, but I don't want you to interject on a conversation that you can't even hear. Like, you can only hear one person. Why are you interjecting? Unless you can hear me right now. Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you right now, but I was trying to talk to Archie, but you just kept running your mouth, so...
Well, this convo may not even go too long.
So you do want to interject, right?
Well, no, I just wanted to hear what you wanted to say, considering Archie wasn't like paying attention to what I was saying, and you just kept talking, right?
Okay, good.
No,
You seem to
I
have,
heard
like,
I heard the altercation like beforehand. If you like said something amidst like me and him speaking, then I may not have heard.
Well, no, I don't understand why like he automatically assumed I was making like an oxymoron. Look, I said the
Well,
statements were separate,
that's what I'm
as in
trying to
like
get
I
at.
didn't give them as in like
I didn't make an
The only thing I
assumption.
was like giving a hint towards like sarcasm too is like the first thing that I said, which was,
Yeah, I may not.
I'm
Mhm. Sorry.
confused. Like that was like the sarcasm there, and then the other part
Mhm.
was separate. That wasn't an oxymoron given.
Yeah, that's kind of what I tried to elucidate has to be an alternative. But I mean, it is true. Maybe it is an assumption, right? Maybe you didn't baselessly make and jump to this conclusion. Maybe you even inferred this from some factor that appeared to be contradictory.
Wait,
but I'm just trying to understand what factor that is.
Implication. When I
Well,
said
that's
that
why I
was a
called him
social
socially
implication.
inept because you didn't read the fact that I wasn't.
When I said
being an
stop.
Like, I
When I
don't
said that was
know
it,
what types of
just
two-year-old
stop
maturity you
interjecting.
have.
Bruce,
I'm
stop.
going to keep
Bruce, you already
saying,
tapped
okay,
out.
okay, we
Bruce,
can do this.
you're
We
just
can do
gonna
this
local
too.
mute again. Bruce, what you're gonna do is you're gonna local mute again. Bruce, what you're gonna do is local mute again.
It doesn't have
You're
to be
just gonna local
this.
mute again. Why even talk? You're just gonna local mute again. You're just gonna
This
local
is
mute again.
exactly why
You're
I'm
just
not
gonna
gonna
local mute
talk,
again.
because then
You're just
Well, it
gonna
doesn't
local
have
mute
to.
again. You're
It
just
doesn't
gonna
have
local
to.
mute again.
Okay.
You're just gonna local mute again.
You
You're
guys
just
can
gonna
talk
local
about
mute
it.
again.
I'll be,
You're just gonna
I'll be
local
in
mute
here.
again. Just stop.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
just
go
run
put
away.
him back on
All right,
local
you
mute.
said
That
social
was the
implication.
That was literally the first thing I said. I said it was a social implication, not an assumption.
Yeah, that's completely fine.
So that
I mean, I acknowledge this. Like, I can completely be charitable to you and grant you the fact that it was an implication. I'm just asking for where this implication is derived from. Because typically, when we refer to a social implication, right, you're just saying to some effect or to some event or to some action. What's it called? There was something that was implicitly being entailed, right? Or there was something that you got from it, and presumably, it's something that was very intuitive, very prima facie, since you said it was just an appearance. So you may not even commit to the idea that it is an oxymoron. Maybe that it just appeared as so. But I'm just trying to understand where you even derived where it appeared as so. Like, so I'm willing to grant you all this. I'm just not really saying this.
Not all appearances are prima facie. I never implied that it was prima facie.
What do you think I take prima facie to be? Because I don't want to accidentally equivocate on what you mean.
What I mean, what I take. Well, I don't know what you mean. I can tell you what I mean by prima facie.
Because I just mean based on first impression.
Yeah, prior to evaluation. And so appearances don't have to be. I'm just telling you that not all appearances have to be prima facie.
Yeah, I'm not committing to such a claim though.
Okay, I don't know why you brought up prima facie though.
I brought it up because as I already kind of elucidated earlier, it could be the chance that you are actually referring to something that's more so quote unquote prima facie. But if not, I'm just trying to ask you to elucidate at least what factor did you imply this from that it was appearing that way? Which I'm still not being informed of this. I can completely grant you maybe it's not prima facie. That's all.
I'll just tell you. Yeah, I'll just tell you the process. So the process is recognizing a sarcastic tone. Sarcastic tones usually have evidence.
I'm not really asking for a process. I just want you to tell me where it appeared as so.
The process gets to it. Do you know what a process is?
Well, I know you can get to it. I'm aware of what a process is. I'm just saying none of us are really interested in that. I just want to know where it appeared as such.
Where it appeared. Okay, the location.
That's what I've been asking you for like the past 4 minutes.
Well, the process lays out the locations, and if you would have paid attention.
Yeah, I'm aware of what a process is. I already admitted this. In fact, I can even grant you. Well, I'm interjecting because it's not really getting to the point, right? I mean, I can even grant you to the fact that the process will eventually get to this. I just don't really care to eventually get into it because I've been letting you kind of run the stage. I've been giving you your tools to play with. I've been letting you eventually try to get to that.
Yeah, you got server muted, and it's not modern abuse. I was talking. You interjected because you're an idiot. So the process elucidates, as you continuously like to say, and you'll probably say that word again because it's one of your peeves. So the process elucidates the temporal aspect. So it's going to clarify where in the part where he said, it's going to clarify where I got that appearance from. The processes work, idiot. Now the process here, and you're just going to sit down for a minute, okay? You can calm down for a second and get some control over yourself. The process goes as such where I recognize a sarcastic tone. I take it to be that most sarcastic tones are indicative of some sort of evidence, or they offer a negation of some proposition. And if you take that hypothesis is going to make the prediction that he offers evidence via oxymoron or irony. Both of those count as a valid modus tollens if you put it in like premise by premise form. Or you can just do something that infers the negation of that. That's kind of what that's the point of an oxymoron. And so given that hypothesis, it's going to predict that he's going to use some kind of evidence. That meets the criteria for evidence. That's where the appearance came from. You Spurg. You can talk now. Oh wait, I still have you. Wait, yeah, you can talk now. Did he get muted? Where is he?
I don't know. Can we like get off the subject though? This is kind of retarded. I mean, I think we clearly understand, like, the reasoning, like Lucario had to infer, like, the conclusion he came to. Like, what the fuck?
This is why I stopped.
Hey, this is too
like,
autistic. Like, please stop.
I would just
like
want to be unmuted to respond.
every time I talk to an anime debater, like they always like sometimes they
I'm not even sure I disagree with you,
I'm not an anime
Lucario.
debater anymore. Oh, you're back? Wait, did you join on an alt?
I'm just not sure why I'm muted. I didn't.
You're
do anything.
echoing. You're echoing.
No, I know it's because you have my other account muted. Thank you. So how's that
You're in on
sure
just
why
leave.
the
wait, he has your.
well, now you're interrupting me.
Server
So now you're interrupting me. I don't know who's muted me.
Hold on, the
It was just very, very weird. So we're gonna check every like blunder that you just made, and we're gonna look at my screen share. So what I asked you for, and we're gonna detail the question that I asked you. Where exactly in the appearance is the oxymoron? So maybe I'll try to highlight exactly what I'm asking for, since you didn't really track that beforehand. I'm just asking you to make or claim to what statement exactly was true of it being an oxymoron. Now we're gonna grab the definition real quick that you personally agreed to, and I hope that you don't take this back, because I'm sure you don't. Because typically it's just something that appears to be a contradiction. You told me the process you're going to take me to is that you recognize the sarcastic tone, right? And most sarcastic tones seem to indicate some negation of some proposition. And going under this hypothesis, that's your first blunder. I'm not sure where the hypothesis is being drawn here. I mean, generally a hypothesis is just an explanon that tends to grant some explanandum. You're typically just explaining some phenomenon. There's no phenomenon being explained here. You recognize a sarcastic tone, and most sarcastic tones indicate some negation of a proposition. What phenomenon is being explained here? This doesn't really make any sense, right? But let's grant that you actually did use a hypothesis the correct way, because again, I'm not trying to be rude to you. You're just being a retard, right? You said under this hypothesis, right? Typically people offer this evidence via irony or etc., whatever method, which validates modus tollens. And under this hypothesis, you're going to assume or use some evidence, and this is where the appearance comes from. But so the conclusion is you're telling me where the appearance comes from and taking me through a process to where you're letting me where it does. When that's not even what I asked for, right? All I asked for is what statement was entailed of it being an oxymoron, or entailing that he was actually trying to claim to you that you were committing some oxymoron, or entailing that from him saying but, right? Clearly that had to mean that you were being contradictory or confused in some sense. That's all I'm personally asking for. And I'll note down again what you say, because I don't want to mistrack. Like, let me know if I didn't track anything. But this didn't really answer my question or inform me of what I was trying to be informed of, right? But I'll let you take it away.
Okay, yeah. This is so funny. Like every time an anime debater tries to like revamp themselves, they try to like rebrand themselves.
I don't know what you're doing meta. Just answer the question.
Just stop. I don't know why
you're just doing meta.
I don't know why you're interjecting.
I don't know why you're doing meta.
I don't know why you felt the need to.
I'll let you do meta. Go ahead.
Now you're interjecting because you're bad faith. Yeah, this is what you're just used to servers where you're able to like permit.
You can mute me if you like. This is go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
You have the
and guess what? You got muted. That's crazy. Anyways, I didn't need your bitch ass permission. You're looking for the exponons. I'll tell you, you're looking for the exponundum. The exponundum is not playing hide and seek. Okay. The exponundum was elucidated for you. It was the first thing that we talked about in the conversation, where it's the sentence, I'm confused, but you're the one not talking, which is stupid. It's just stupid to say, because if you had any social implications, that implies that there's an oxymoron presented there. Oh, I'm confused, but you're not talking. Those things don't seem to add up. That's what usually would follow. Like the math ain't mathing, essentially. There's a social implication. I took that as an implication for an oxymoron and something to negate the previous one. So you take the fact, however, and that's what the word but means, B-U-T. It means, however, you're the one not talking. That sort of implies the falsity of the first one. Like, it could be, oh, I'm being good, or I'm being bad faith, but I'm allowing you to finish. Those things don't really make sense. Or I'm being bad faith, or I'm confused, but, I'm tracking the conversation, and I'm, allowing you to continue your talks, and I'm not insulting you. That's just an example. I can give more examples if you weren't aware of that, but it seems like after continuously asking for the exponundum to this point, like where the oxymoron is, after not tracking it this far, after it's been explained to you multiple times throughout the conversation, one would assume that you're asking for something different, or assume that you're asking the derivative of the appearance, which is also a valid social implication. But, I mean, those are just things that you wouldn't have the ability to pick up on. And so now you're just going to get back to your anime rhetoric. But you can, I don't know if you're unmuted. Here, I'll unmute you, little guy.
I'm abusing the big 25 interest.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, but I mean, we're gonna
the
go
2-year-old who says stop,
really
stop.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
They get cut off. Is the one
No, it's okay. It's okay.
meeting.
Relax. Listen. Well, first off, I'm just gonna explain this. I'm not sure why you're being hostile, because I'm not actually saying anything particularly wrong here. I mean, first off, when we were going over an exponandum and an explanon, the question wasn't where is the explanandum? The question was, what statement had implied or appeared as an oxymoron? The only reason I mentioned an explanandum and an explanon is because I was telling you what a hypothesis is. Generally, a hypothesis expects things. Generally, a hypothesis is just an explanation, a very structured explanation that's trying to just explain a phenomenon. An explanandum only refers to the statement that's being explained. So I wasn't exactly asking you, what's it called, for the explanandum. And even if this was, quote unquote, the explanandum that I was looking for, this isn't even an explanandum even in itself, unless you're saying this is the statement being explained. But I'm not really asking you to explain this statement. I'm just asking you to explain where the oxymoron is. So this still wouldn't even be, sufficing of what I'm asking. But let's just grant that it is. Let's be charitable to you, right? You told me that if I had social cues, it obviously implies that this is an oxymoron. Well, let's be clear here, right? An oxymoron is just something that appears to be contradictory. I'm just asking for where this appearance is implied. You telling me that if I had social cues, that it'd obviously be an oxymoron? I mean, I'd be generous to even grant you that, right? But even if I were to grant you that, I'm not even sure why this matters. Because let's say that it obviously does imply an oxymoron if I had social cues, right? What are we talking about? And in what way is it obviously implying it? I mean, this isn't informing me of anything. If you're just talking about the statement of it in itself, well, and you're relying on the but, I mean, I can give you multiple instances of why a but wouldn't imply an oxymoron, right? An oxymoron, again, is just a figure of speech where two contradictory opposing ideas are combined. Like something like bittersweet, deafening silence. You can go on ChatGPT or Google. It's going to give you an overview of this. You can go on any literature site. I mean, I personally learned it when I was in the 3rd grade. A but only, it's what's called a coordinating conjunction, right? So this is only really referring to a contrast. That's why I was saying earlier, and even Bruce actually clarified his intention, which is why I'm kind of confused on why you're metadebating this. He wasn't trying to say that it's somewhere contradictory or that these are two negative statements that you're typing and yet you're not confused. That wasn't at all the implication. I understand that may be what you personally interpreted, and I'm completely fine with granting you that, because maybe somewhere in your background assumption that was just baked in that allowed you to kind of conclude to that. That clearly isn't the obvious interpretation, right? Because he could just be contrasting it and simply saying, oh, really, I'm confused, but you're muted. He could simply be saying that he finds it strange that you're muted and trying to comment about him. He could just simply be saying that he finds it dumb that you're muted instead of actually speaking to him because he feels that someone who's actually competent or confident in what they were saying would actually speak up, which actually he did end up clarifying was the interpretation that he was laying across. So it's already very clear, right? Let me be clear here that you are wrong on this being an oxymoron, right? But I'm still trying to be charitable to you because I'm just not really understanding where exactly in the appearance is it implying this. You also made the statement that it implies an oxymoron. That's what the word but means. Well, that's another blunder. That's not what the word but means. Again, but is just a coordinating conjunction that refers to a contrast, an exception, or qualification. An oxymoron contains two contradictory statements. So to say that, let's say she's kind, but she's firm, that's not two contradictory statements because you can hold to two. That's not a P and not P. That's not even appearably a P and not P, even though that's a bit, that's not as rigorous, right? Because obviously it could appear differently to other people. But I don't think the common person would even agree to such terms. So not only are you using it in a very, very weird proprietary way, but I'd be generous to even grant you that definition because that's not even common language. But I've been talking for a while, so I'll just let you respond because I'm an anime debater. So go ahead.
Yeah, but you've been talking for a long time. You actually had a lot of time, a lot of years in that time to talk. So, you criticized the fact that I mentioned hypotheses, and then you said, well, hypotheses deal with exponons and explanandums. And then you said those weren't apparent, so I elucidated those for you. So that's to answer the first question, why I even started talking about the exponons and explanandums, because you have this implication here. First, you criticized my usage of a hypothesis by saying that the explanandum was absent. Then I clarified it to you where the explanandum was, and clarifying where the explanandum was actually does imply it implies the answer to your first question, or your intended question, which is, where did it appear as oxymoron? Now, the explanandum was a situation. The oxymoron is the situation because the explanandum mentions the situation. I can draw it out maybe even slower for you. I can maybe get a whiteboard and point to you how the explanandum relates to the oxymoron. But hopefully, and I'm just guessing at this point, but hopefully you understand where the oxymoron has been laid. I'm not saying it's a successful one. I'm just saying it's an alleged oxymoron, which is what I said. Which is why initially I said it seems like an oxymoron. Which is why I said I'm using social cue awareness to imply that you labeled my these states of affairs as an oxymoron. I don't think you picked up on any of that. I'm prepared to type it out for you. I'm prepared to repeat it for you again. If you have any questions, just let me know. But then you also made further points where you said oxymorons haven't been successfully labeled because the criteria for an oxymoron hasn't been met. Because it could just be a different type of conjunction. Now, I want to clarify. When you say but, like but, and you say that there are two things that contrast. Well, it's important to take some time to think to yourself, what does contrast fucking mean? Contrast, I take to be opposing. I take those to be something that imply the other things, and you can reduce those down to contradictory statements, which is the definition of an oxymoron. Now, he could be using it in a way that is just a regular conjunction. Now, there's two types of conjunctions that he's not just two, but there's two main ones that I want to mention here, and then I'll mention the third one in a bit. There's a couple of types of conjunctions that he could have been referring to, and I'm using social cue awareness to imply the latter. The first one is and, the second one is but, and I'm quoting, quote, and, unquote, versus, quote, but, unquote. Now, what's the difference between those? Well, and is a standard conjunction. It could be contrasting and it could not. But the difference between and but, the thing that separates those types of conjunctions in natural language, is the fact that but, which is the word that he used, always implies, at least socially, it doesn't entail, but implies via language, linguistically implies that there's a contrast. Contrast, again, what did we talk about with contrast? Oh, contrast is something that's opposing. Oh, what do we mean by opposing? Oh, something that would be like seemingly contradictory, which meets the sufficient criteria for an oxymoron. That's definitionally what an oxymoron is. Now, there is a third type where we could, let's just take the hypothesis that he was just suspending judgment on whether there is an implication or not. Well, there's actually a third option that he could have used for that conjunction, and he could have used a mutually inclusive or. Now, those are three options that he had in his vocabulary that he could have used. Of course, we might want to doubt his vocabulary, and we might want to suspend judgment on whether it's inclusive of three terms that can have the same meaning. But I think if we were to be charitable, let's just assume for a second that he's not completely socially inept. He has three of these terms in his vocabulary, and he chose to use the one that does imply an oxymoron. And I can explain to you exactly how and why those terms get you to an oxymoron, or at least an implication of an oxymoron, which is the exact thing that I've always been saying this entire time, which is that there's an implication of an oxymoron, not necessarily that it is.
Oh, I hope you're not done. I definitely want to hear that explanation.
Okay, do you remember the explanation that I offered previously?
Yeah, I've been writing it down, actually. But explanation to what? Because you labeled two different alternatives. Three, sorry.
The explanation as to why the definition of but in the selection of the term that he selected is indicative of an oxymoron.
Yeah, so I just don't agree to that. I heard your explanation.
I'm not. Well, I want you to repeat it.
Actually, I didn't even hear an argument for the reductionality of it.
An argument for the reductionality? So
what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are two things that contrast. And contrast just simply means opposing and implies quote unquote another thing, which is reductionally an oxymoron. Is this something along the lines of what you're saying?
I didn't say two. I didn't say two. It could be any number of conjunctive elements.
That's completely fine. Any number. But that's what you're saying?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I don't hold to that. So what's the argument or inference to imply that?
The inference to imply that but implies a contrast?
Sorry, I should probably be more clear in my language. I'm gibbering.
Well, yeah.
What's the inference that supports that? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, well, just to be clear, you provided the definition in the semantic reduction of but prior to me. Like you went on Oxford, you went on Oxford, I believe. And so
I didn't go on Oxford, but which was?
Okay. You used the term contrasting prior to me utilizing that term.
That wasn't my definition. Remember? I'm asking what's the definition of but that I referred to.
I remember from my memory, you used a definition of but that included the word contrast.
Yeah, it included that. So what's the definition of the word but that I referred to?
Okay, do you agree that you gave your definition of but before I used the term contrast?
I'm just not hearing an answer.
Okay, well, that's stupid because you contended the fact that you used the term contrast.
My question?
No, it's stupid that you're dodging this question.
That I asked prior to you for clarity, by the way?
Do you want me to clarify the question?
I want you to just answer the question.
Do you agree that you
Which is what was my definition of but?
Here. The statement that you disagreed with.
I'll just clarify. I don't want you to just infinitely dodge.
Stop. The statement that you disagreed with is that you used the term contrasting before I did. You agree on that, right?
No.
Okay, no. Okay. Beautiful.
What the fuck?
Stop. You use you applied your definition of but prior to me using the term contrasting. Your definition of but includes the term contrasting, so therefore you introduced the term contrasting prior to me utilizing it. Do you want me to spell this out for you?
I don't think you're understanding what my contention even is. Actually, okay. I haven't even laid out a contention yet.
Did you even fucking track what I just said? Did you track what I just fucking said?
No, I tracked. I just don't really care for it because it's not answering the question.
Okay, so on something
you just what you laid out is that I used the word contrast, which is
something that we disagree.
You asked me a question. I'm just trying to answer. So what you asked me, right, is this, or not what you asked me, what you explained is that in my usage of the word but, at least definitionally, since you didn't want to actually give the definition because you didn't track it, you said that it was at least included. And your point that you're trying to make is that at least contrast.
Oh shit! Did my audio cut out or did you stop talking?
Oops, sorry. I had an Apollo moment. But yeah, by me including that in the definition, right? Since I mentioned it prior to you, that you referenced it after. But all this is pretty much nonsense. I don't really care about this. Like, if you'd like to say that, that's completely fine. It's not really answering the question. I'd be willing to be charitable and grant you that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's not really.
I'm just concerned with what you think my definition of but is.
After being stubborn this long, I wouldn't really be charitable. It would just be, not being an idiot.
That's okay. I'll grant you all that. That's fine.
I grant it's okay.
I'm animated, but what's the definition?
But what's not okay is continuously over talking. Wait, man, can you stop?
All I did was ask a question.
Yeah, in the middle of my sentence. Please stop. I don't
Do you think this looks good, Lucario, by the way?
I don't think it looks good. I think it looks terrible for me. You're blowing me out.
I'll see you agree.
What the fuck?
Yo, is that my? No, that's his.
No, that's me. So what's the definition of but that I refer to?
Yeah,
I'll just answer it if you can't answer.
I already told you I don't. I already told you I don't remember.
Actually, something we should probably refer to.
Okay, now you're interjecting again. Now you're interjecting again. Control your urges. I was just trying Control your urges. Control your urges.
I was just clarifying the answer.
I think your Wi-Fi agrees with me that you should stop interjecting. Your Wi-Fi cut out while you were trying to interject me.
You just told me that you didn't understand
the definition. Your Wi-Fi cut out while trying to interrupt me. I think there's a
common denominator here. You can say my Wi-Fi is cutting in and out, but I can hear myself. I'm trying to clarify the definition because you claimed you didn't understand the definition or track it.
You don't want to hear yourself when you're talking. That's a bad thing. Now stop interjecting. You're going to get muted again. You're going to get muted again. You're going to get muted again. Yeah, you made a stupid claim, which is that I did not or that you did not use the term contrast before I used the term contrast. Now, what I'm going to get to this in a second, as I was making a further point with it, but for some reason, because I just wanted clarity, I decided to ask you, do we at least agree on this obvious thing? And for some reason, you said no. Now, here's a proof for it. You used the term but, you introduced semantics for the term but before I even mentioned the word contrast. That's true. You in the definition that you used for the term but, contrast is one of the terms in your definition, which you agreed on. Now, if we agree that you use the term that you defined the word but before I use the term contrast, that logically follows that you used the term contrast before I used the term contrast. Now, that's a point that once you realized was true, you realized that it was actually correct, you decided to say that you don't really care that much. Well, that's fine. I don't really care that much either. I just want to make sure that we're at least on the same page on things. Now, okay, now that we've established and you conceded that the term contrast was introduced by you prior, I wanted to get your semantics and see if that we understand or operate under whatever semantics that you were using for contrast. Now, it seems like you're kind of using just definitions over and over again, or like looking up definitions, so we can do this part together, okay? Let's look up the definition of contrast and see if it correlates to a contradiction at all. Okay, contrast meaning the state of being strikingly different from something else in juxtaposition or juxtaposition or close association. Okay, do we agree on that definition? Yeah, actually, I'm gonna unmute you.
I don't know why you're doing this weird mute thing. This
has
nothing to do with my point.
I don't know why you're doing this weird you know what? I'm interrupting you right now. I apologize.
Yeah, you are. You have been repeatedly. And in fact, I'd argue I haven't even been viciously interrupting you. Each time has just been for clarification. I already said that I'm completely fine in saying that your anecdote of when whoever mentioned contrast first is fine. The only issue I have right now is that you think it's at least reductionally, or that it can be reduced to an oxymoron without there being some further additive claim or some further additive reasoning to it. And if there is some further additive reasoning to it, I haven't really heard it, so I'd just like to hear it. But I can agree that it definitely is contrasting, but I've given instances of where you can use coordinating conjunctions, such as but, and So I know I like there, but just listen to what I'm saying. So, like, for example, if I say that she's kind but firm, I wouldn't say that that's an oxymoron, because even though that's a contrast between two traits, both can still be like true. But if I say that's this, like, let's say this is a cruel kindness or something like that, yeah, it probably would be considered an oxymoron because there's some inherent contradiction in the phrase itself. But I mean, this is just rudimentary stuff. I'm just asking you to elaborate for where the oxymoron is traced. I don't know why we're doing this meta things. I'm not trying to like argue about UN definitions.
You're beautiful. Now, if you listen to the things that I said very early on in the conversation, I said that the first statement implies the negation of the second one, and vice versa. Now, when you say kind but firm, I think that's a very well represented. I think that's a really good analogy to what's going on here. Like when you have to say kind but firm, as opposed to kind and firm, the reason why you'd say kind but firm is because when something is kind, you kind of have this idea in your head that it wouldn't be firm, or if you have this idea that it's firm, it kind of implies that it wouldn't be kind. And so if it were to be the case, those would be apparently contradictory. But that's why it's called, that's why oxymorons are apparent contradictions and not actual contradictions, which is why you use the term but to elucidate the sort of contrast there. Now, do you agree on that? Which is what I've said this entire time. The first part implies the negation of the other one. That was a question.
Sorry, I lied.
You're lagging really bad.
Trying to get. I don't really understand what you're saying. Are you saying like when we say, or because when we say but, it's only because when we think of something kind, we probably wouldn't think of something firm. So because of it's like just naturally going to be appeared as like a contradiction. Is that something similar to what you're saying?
Yeah, and so if you wanted to do that, you could say that. Stop. Yeah, so you can use that example. What?
You asked if we were like on the same agreement with that. I'm saying no.
Okay, we're not on the same agreement. Okay. I'm
not even sure why I take that to be the case. That just seems like a very stupid argument.
I didn't really give an argument this far.
My apologies. It seems like a very stupid inference.
Stop.
My bad.
Stop, fucking nerd.
Yeah, anyways. I don't know why Dingo was talking.
Fucking
nerd. Bro, yeah, stop acting that's not your normal voice, bro. Watch this guy talk regularly. Come on, bro.
You're a fucking nerd, dude. No one gives a fuck.
Anyways. But yeah. So I'm not saying it's exclusively the case or the times that you would use the term but I'm saying that in contrast to what I'm saying, ironically, what I am using an inference as is that the very first thing, and it's on recording, is that I took the sarcastic tone in conjunction with the application of the term but as a conjunctive, as opposed to a mutually inclusive or an and, like those term ands. And so you take those, and this is where you got the hypothesis that I was talking about earlier, which you couldn't track. Hopefully you've been typing, but I don't think you can type fast enough to even track the hypothesis that I gave earlier. Maybe you can scroll up. If you scroll up about 10 minutes ago, you're going to see your notes of me elucidating to you the hypothesis with an exponens and an exponendum. Now, the hypothesis was the explanation where it made predictions of him using a sarcastic tone in conjunction with a particular conjunctive selection, as opposed to the other two options that he had in his vocabulary. Now, that is going to make an inference. You take that hypothesis, it's going to make that prediction. That prediction ended up being true, and so that raises the probability of the hypothesis. Now, I don't even think you even responded earlier. Earlier, you criticized my application of a hypothesis. Now, do you still hold to a criticism or to a criticism of my application of a hypothesis? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm not even understanding what the question is. That doesn't make sense to me.
I'll repeat the question. I'll try to say it slower. Earlier, you criticized me for using the term hypothesis. Do you still hold to that criticism?
In the sense you used it earlier?
Yeah.
What?
How did I use it earlier?
So it appears to me as though you're trying to claim that the hypothesis typically was, that he was going to use some information and evidence, and that this is where the appearance came from. That's like the direct statement you said when you said that this is the hypothesis. I don't think that's a hypothesis, because it doesn't have a proper explanandum to the explanon, to which you later on said that the explanandum was I'm confused, but you're the one not talking. To which, I mean, sure, if you were to say that this is the phenomenon or statement that's being explained, that's okay. I'm just not really sure where the explanon is. And if there were to be an explanon, I'm not sure why I'd take that to be the only plausible instance. Because surely there would be other hypotheses and other things that generate.
You went on mute, by the way. I didn't interrupt.
That's okay. I'm not saying you did. That's fine. But typically there would be other hypotheses, or at least other inferences, or at least other beliefs, where the expectations would still be expected, right? To where these phenomena would still be generated. And typically, I'm sure there could be plenty of more that actually have far higher priors, which would just give the head start. So even after the updated information, it wouldn't really matter anyway. But yeah, just past that, that's just me being charitable though. But yeah, previously, just to be clear, I'm not even sure that hypothesis actually was a hypothesis. Because I'm not even sure what's actually being explained, and if there were to be explained, to which if you're just referring to the statement, I'm not sure what you said that actually explained the statement. Right, that doesn't seem like a successful hypothesis.
Earlier, I asked you if you had any criticism of the way that I used the term hypothesis previously, and that was after I used it and I explained it in this case right now once I've updated it. It's been the same case, and I assumed that you just didn't understand it the way I used it previously, but now do you still not understand the way I'm using the term hypothesis? And
No,
you
I
can
don't.
just say that you can just say that you actually do understand it, but it's like a false application. So you can still
No, I don't understand it.
negate the confusion, but just still say that I'm using it like idiosyncratically.
No, you heard me repeatedly. I don't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't take
Currently,
that to be any
right?
standard
And not just
usage of
earlier. Currently,
hypothesis.
you don't understand it. Here, I'll just elucidate it for you. So the hypothesis is that he's using the second atomic proposition to lower the credences and lower the chances of the first atomic proposition in that conjunctive statement. Now, if he was trying to do this, it would make sense for him to use linguistic implications to clarify how the sort of modus tollens would work, or it's the thing that would lower the credence in their
Wait,
relations
slow
to
down.
each
I
other.
didn't track that.
Okay, so the hypothesis is that he's trying to use the second atomic proposition to lower the probability of the first atomic proposition. Are we clear on
That's
that?
what you think the hypothesis is?
That's what the hypothesis is.
Okay.
No,
So what's
not what,
the
do you think I'm wrong?
inference?
Is it possible for me to be wrong about this hypothesis when I generated it?
Under what scope? So I'm not even sure that's
Possible
important.
a nomological metoscope.
Yeah, I'm not sure
And
that's
it could
important.
honestly,
So
if I'm
what's
being
the
honest, it could be
explanon
a
in that
logic.
hypothesis?
It could be a logical metoscope. Like if I generate a hypothesis.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's just
You
true.
don't even
It's
have to
just
go
true
through
by
this.
definition. So
No, it's
it just
okay.
makes
It's okay.
it just doesn't make a lot. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to say that that's what you think the hypothesis is when I'm the one who generated the hypothesis. Yeah. And do you
Wonderful
understand
comment.
the predictions do you understand? I don't know if I think that was either you muting yourself untimely, you not talking while unmuted, or your internet. I don't know which one that was. What were you saying?
No, I muted because I assumed you weren't finished.
Okay, beautiful. So now that we understand that's what the hypothesis is, and that's what I know the hypothesis is, do you understand the predictions that this hypothesis is going to make?
Well, firstly, I wasn't saying that this isn't a hypothesis in this instance, to where, at least in the sense to where I'm saying you're like using the term in some different way, or that you don't know what hypothesis you're attempting to formulate. I'm just saying that I don't even see the explanon. I see the phenomenon. I'm not seeing what explains this phenomenon.
The hypothesis is the explanon.
Well, that's some interesting stuff.
And yeah, you posit an explanon, you theorize an explanon about an exponendum. That's how hypotheses
You're
work.
like explaining
did you not know
very
that?
rudimentary stuff. I was just asking what exactly is explaining this phenomenon, because I just see a phenomenon here. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the hypothesis that you attempted to generate was that he's using the second atomic proposition to lower the credences to the first atomic proposition. That just seems like a phenomenon, like a behavior. I'm not sure what explains this behavior.
So I just want to be clear. You said that you didn't see an exponon. So now you're saying you don't see an exponendum, right?
Okay, well, let's be even more clear. An explanandum refers to the statement or phenomenon. So if I'm saying that I don't understand the explanation behind this phenomenon, no, I'm saying that I indeed do see the explanandum that you're attempting to portray. I just don't see the explanon. So it's actually backwards. I'm acknowledging and appreciating the fact that you formulated or demonstrated or informed us of some phenomenon that's happened. I'm not sure what is explaining this phenomenon, unless you're saying that this isn't entirely a phenomenon and that there seems to be a phenomenon being explained here, to which maybe you can make that more clear. But the statement right here, I'm not sure why you're interrupting me if you're attacking me for that. But it just seems as though if you're just saying that he's just using some atomic proposition to lower the probability of another. I mean, okay. What explains that though? Are you saying that this is the thing explaining something else? Like you're not really making the hypothesis clear. Like I'm not trying to be pedantic, but you're just not really, you're not saying anything important or interesting.
You keep having long pauses, and whenever I interject, I'm not intentionally interrupting you, but
That's okay.
either it's your long pauses, and now you're interrupting. Just calm down. Now, either it's those poorly timed long pauses, or it's your poorly timed microphone control, or it's your internet. It could be all three of those. For which I'm genuinely sorry that you're going. I'm genuinely sorry you're going through all three of those. Now, earlier I told you that something was the exponents. Do you know what that was? Do you remember what that was?
Is that a call from
No, inform me.
You don't remember? I'm pretty sure I said it very clearly. It starts with, here, I'll give you a hint. It starts with an H.
It's my Wi-Fi, I'm sorry.
It starts with an H. Does it ring any bells?
Is it a horse?
Nope.
Really?
No, otherwise Apollo would be in here.
God damn it. Can you inform me what it is?
It's a hypothesis.
Oh, really?
Do you remember
serious?
Whoa. Do you remember what the hypothesis was? Can you repeat it?
So yeah, of course. Okay. He's using the second atomic proposition, to lower the credences to the first atomic proposition. Did I get that right, sir?
The credences of the first one, yeah.
Okay, sir. What else?
Okay, so you have an exponens, right?
No,
that's not an exponens, right?
I mean, it could be.
Oh,
I just don't see.
You don't know why. Because you don't understand how. Because you don't know how Bayesian.
I just lagged my bad.
Yeah. It's okay. So
I didn't hear anything you just said. What was that?
Stop. When you have a hypothesis, right? That hypothesis makes predictions. Now, earlier I asked you, I gave you this quote-unquote exponens. You can reject if it's an exponens or not. You could say it could be. But what I'm presenting to you was a quote-unquote exponens in the form of a hypothesis. Now, given this hypothesis,
what does that even mean? What the fuck?
Stop.
I'm sorry, that
do you
was
not
like
know?
monkey gibberations. I'm sorry,
Repeat
what was
I just said. Repeat what I just
said.
said.
The hypothesis was simply just the exponon. That's what I took you to be saying.
I didn't say it was simply just the exponens. You are incorrect.
So what was that?
Here, I'll just repeat it.
Actually, I'll type it out just to make sure.
What I said was, is I'm going to give you a quote-unquote exponens. Now, the reason why I say quote-unquote exponens is because I don't want to make it an affirmation, because it might be something that you're correct on and that's actually not an exponens. I'm just referring to your suspension of judgment there. That was a bit of meta that you didn't pick up on, but it's okay. We can't all track. I'm sure if I was talking to somebody higher on my level, they would have picked up on that and could have maybe responded to the rhetoric. I'm not on your level, main character, I'm sorry. But it's fine. Just calm down, yeah.
You and Apollo are the main characters, I forgot.
Stop.
I'm just not on your level, sir.
Just calm down. Now you're interjecting. You're about to get server muted like a dog again.
Please don't do that. Please don't put a muzzle on me.
Locally muted you.
Please.
Okay, yeah. So I said that, and something you said you didn't understand, which is just very low level, and I can't wait to get the recording because this has just been hilarious. I said that I'm presenting to you an exponens. And I said quote-unquote exponens because you said that you're suspending judgment on whether it's an exponens or not, or you said that it could be and it could not be. So I'm not asserting that it's an exponens thus far, but I'm presenting a quote-unquote exponens, and the person I'm quoting is myself because I'm labeling it as an exponens, and it's taking the form of a hypothesis. Now, I've repeated what the hypothesis is numerous times in this conversation, but just for clarity, just to be extra succinct and just to be extra clear, and good faith, by the way, I want you to repeat to me the hypothesis one more time.
Are you done, by the way? I don't want to get like a muzzle put back on
No,
me.
I'm not done.
I have PTSD.
No, I'm not done.
If you're not done, okay, let me know.
Okay. It's only got a job I did. No, I don't want to work here anymore.
Mario.
I'm tired of caring for these. Hey, what's up, man?
You got this.
You was my bitch. You know that, right?
Anyway, wait, Archie, it's finally time. You can talk now.
You was my bitch.
Oh, wait, I thought you said you weren't done.
No, I said I am done now.
No,
I wasn't done earlier.
I asked you, let me know when you're not done, or when you are done, and you said okay.
This is you.
I just let you know.
This is you.
I just let you know.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
I can't. I'm not looking at my phone. Who's talking?
It's okay. It's okay. So what you just told me in response to you telling me that I was wrong on you saying that you were going to give me a quote unquote explanon is that I'm going to give you a quote unquote explanon that additive to the hypothesis which is that he's
Is that
using
my
the
Wi-Fi
second
or is it
atomic
yours?
proposition to lower the credences.
Sorry, you're gonna have to rewind.
first
It
atomic
might actually be my
proposition.
Wi-Fi this time.
I mean, I'm on a hearing all, so I cut out like temporarily, but you didn't miss out on anything important.
I just want to be extra clear.
Yeah, I just clarified for you. Do you have a response?
No, I didn't hear your explanation. It cut out for me.
You didn't hear the explanation because I cut out for a second? Am I getting that clear?
I mixed up words. I don't remember what they were.
You
They're
mixed up
incoherent
words
due to
because I
lack
cut
of
out for a
proper-
second? Am I getting that clear?
Yeah. I didn't hear important words.
Interesting. That's a weird phenomenon. I've never heard that happen.
Somebody
It's okay. I guess I'll clarify for you again. So what I got from what you're saying is
someone
that
really wants my nuts right now.
I don't know why you're interrupting me. That's very weird. Kind of like an anime debater.
Interrupting you.
I don't know why you're being
hey,
like
man,
that.
I don't know why you're interrupting your
Can
friend
you please stop
Archie.
being an
He's
anime
being
debater?
sensitive
You're
about
just
that.
interrupting me.
Yeah,
I'll go on
yeah,
mute. Let me know
stop,
when you're done.
Yeah, Bruce, stop interrupting you. Anyways, I'm not done.
Fucking nerd.
You done?
No.
Okay. You're gonna sit on silence and like use ChatGPT. They're
No.
formulating you an answer.
I'm gonna sing a little song.
Okay. Get all your stress.
Over my shoulders, under my skin, will you ever return again? Hey, Bruce, man, what's
Lucario
up,
getting
man?
caught by pred catchers. Ah! Bro, is this
Yeah,
real?
Bruce, did you have some? Oh wait, that's not Bruce. That's Tingo.
I love little girls. Then you know.
Wait, you thought this was Bruce this entire time? He's been deafened for the
Look.
past like 2 minutes?
Not gonna lie.
Actually, my bad.
There was-
20 minutes.
I just heard somebody calling my name over and over.
No, it's cool. It's cool. So now that we're done with the do you actually have like an actual like proper hypothesis? Because I've let you run your course, you know, and I just haven't seen the hypothesis. I've explained to you that I just see a phenomenon or a potential explanation, but I don't see both. And a hypothesis expects both. So what is that?
An hypothesis doesn't expect itself. What?
Yes, it does. Wait, oh, sorry.
It
That's not what I'm saying.
It expects.
I'm saying when I say a
phenomenon.
hypothesis expects it, I'm just trying to clarify unless you don't like me to. It's up to you.
No, I don't.
That was a blunder in speaking it. That's not in the same sense to where I say that a hypothesis expects data, because that's referring to the content of the hypothesis. I'm just saying that if we are to expect a hypothesis, and if we are to do this, what's expected from that generation is that there's going to be an explanon and an explanandum. I'm not saying both here. And that's what's required to form a hypothesis. That's what most logicians are going to determine to be a hypothesis. And if you're going to argue with me on this, we could just like look it up. But I don't even think it has to be that deep. If you're using it in some like weird, like idiosyncratic way, you could just clarify that. But it just seems like you're equivocating terribly right now.
You asked me if I wanted you to clarify, and I said no. And then you just violated my preferences. I
I'm
don't
sorry.
appreciate that. But anyways,
I don't
do you
look at
remember?
Reactions account,
Yeah,
so-
my last question was, which you didn't answer. Do you remember what the
asked
hypothesis
this
that
question
I
prior.
presented to you was?
It's on
You
my
asked
screen
what the
share.
hype. You asked what the. I'm not looking at your. I'm sorry, bro. Your Wi-Fi is not equipped for audio decibels right now. I'm not gonna like take away from it by looking at your screen share.
I've already clarified multiple times what the hypothesis is. In fact, when I explained
What's the
what I was
hypothesis?
asking you of you, I repeated it. Sure, I'll repeat it for the third time if this gets you to finally stop dodging the question. So the hypothesis is that he is using an atomic proposition that came second in line to lower the credences to an atomic proposition that came first in line. Is that what you're saying
Right.
for the fifth time? Cool.
Correct.
Now can you answer the question?
Now, do you know the predictions of this
That's a
hypothesis?
question itself. I didn't ask you for an inquisition. Do you have an answer?
Oh, well, I asked this one prior.
No,
in
I
case you
asked
don't
this
remember.
prior, and that's on rec, so this isn't gonna look good. Just answer.
I asked
Like
it a
I
long
literally
time
told you
ago.
I'm gonna answer your question in good faith that you're going to answer my question.
I asked it a long time ago, but I'm smarter than you, so I'm able to. I don't know how you went on. I don't know why you're going on mute. Oh, are you still on your other account?
Because I want the answer.
Oh, your shitty Wi-Fi doesn't even register that you're on mute, and it still presents audio decibels. That's fucking
That's okay.
hilarious.
I'm just not sure how this is
Anyway,
important to the
what's your
argument.
question, man? Here, what's your question, man?
Yeah, I'll repeat it for the fifth time. So where is the explanum in conjunction with the explanandum from the hypothesis?
Oh, you would have been able to infer that if you understood, if you at least answered.
That isn't
the
an
last
answer.
One. No, stop. I'm not done.
Stop!
Just
I
calm
don't.
down.
Don't force me
Just
to
stop.
answer.
I'm not done. Just calm
It's okay.
down, anime debater. Just calm down. Come on. Anyways, no, the hypothesis. Now, if you were to answer the question, we're like, okay, what are some predictions that this hypothesis is going to make? Well, those predictions are going to be very selective And like you have a variability of conjunctive terms that you could use. Now it's going to predict that you're going to use the ones that support the evidence that you're using. So it's going to predict that if you were trying to imply and make it clear that you're using the second atomic proposition to negate the first one, that you're going to use something that would have that implication to it. So you wouldn't say, I'm confused and you're not talking. You would say, I'm confused but you're not talking, because that implies the negation of the first one. Now, this is in contrast to both the and conjunctive option or the or mutually inclusive or conjunctive option, where I'm confused or you're not talking. That's possibly a conjunction, but a more confident conjunction would be and. Now, out of all of those possible terms that he could have used, he used the one that implies the other one and the one that is expected under the hypothesis that I gave. Now, this raises the probability of the hypothesis being true once it makes those predictions, but it doesn't stop there, is because and the reason why is because the hypothesis actually makes another prediction about tone, which he used a sarcastic tone, which is the first thing that he said in this conversation, that he used a sarcastic tone. And so that's not even a proposition that's going to be in contention. That's just something that's taken for granted. And once you take for granted the things that are expected under a particular hypothesis, and you take for granted another thing, which is that you use the term but, well, that just raises the probability of hypothesis even more. That's where I got the hypothesis from. Now, I really want you to repeat the process that went there, but you don't have the attention span for that. So I'm just going to let you mute, and then I'm prepared to repeat it for you again and again wherever you have questions. Go for it, big dog.
Took me a while to be unmuted there. So again, that's not what I asked you. Like, I don't really like meta stuff. But let's just grant you the fact for a second that it is a hypothesis. But I do want to be clear here. When I asked you for the exponon and the exponendum, you aren't actually explaining anything. Listen, when you tell me that a hypothesis is simply that he's using something to do something else, he may be explaining what it's to doing or what he is to be doing, right? But you aren't exactly clarifying that. It's very, very unclear. Like, you proposed a phenomenon, sure. I'm not sure what the explanation is. If you're saying the explanation is him using the prop, then I'm not sure how him using the prop actually explains him lowering the credence. So if you want to actually explain that, then you can. But I don't even think this is the biggest concern that I've actually been arising here. Let's assume for a second that it is a hypothesis. Let's assume it's just a very shitty one. And what you actually mean to be saying is something along the lines of, I don't know, that he's has some device to reduce some plausibility of another assertion. Sure, let's assume that's the case. I'm not even sure why I would take this to be the case. I'm not sure what is being generated that's expected under this. Or I'm not sure why I can't just generate another hypothesis that expects the same data. I actually already explained this earlier, that I didn't actually hear a proper response to because you were too torn up on me debating anime when I was 14 and my internet, right? You've been missing the entire question that I've been really asking. But I mean, that's two very heavy burdens they have to do, because I don't even guarantee the fact that this is a full hypothesis.
Okay, the definition of a hypothesis is a proposed explanation for a phenomena. Now, if it's a case that I propose an explanation for a phenomena that meets the Sabinda criteria for it being a hypothesis, but I also go under a Bayesian definition of a hypothesis, where I lay out the Bayesian process. And so once that's gone through, it seems like you kind of want to disagree with it for the sake of disagreeing with it, so that you don't have to like bite the bullet on saying that it's not a hypothesis at all, which is what you said earlier. You said you didn't see how it was a hypothesis and you were confused on the hypothesis. Yeah, you're interjecting again. Just calm the fuck down. Yeah, just
because you ducked.
Yeah, and now I'm gonna mute you. And now yeah. Just wait, hold on. I don't know why my phone takes forever to like mute somebody. But anyway, you got caged like a dog. Just try to learn from me, okay? Whenever it's your turn to talk, notice how I don't interrupt. Like, this is some Apollo shit, bro. I have to constantly mute Apollo. And every other anime, it's almost like there's a common denominator. What the fuck? Anyways. So yeah, I've met I met the semantic criteria of a hypothesis on multiple fronts, and I've explained the inference process in which you ended up getting butt fucked on, and you don't actually have the confidence to contend any of it. But now you just want to say, well, why can't I just give another hypothesis that predicts the same data? Well, maybe you can give those, and they're playing hide and seek. Would you like to give one? Yes or no? You're unmuted. You've been unmuted for a while.
That's okay. I just didn't hear the answer.
I don't know if that genuinely. I genuinely don't think that was your internet. I think that was finally on my side. I think my headphones cut out. Oh, thanks for the WPFP. Thanks, Blues.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the answer.
Answer to what?
So how exactly does this actually explain the phenomenon, right? Even
Because
if we
it
were
makes
to pose it and reframe your, I wasn't actually done. Even if we were to reframe your terrible formulation of what you think the hypothesis is, let's say that you're actually just saying that he's using some second assertion as some device to reduce the perceived plausibility or credences of the first assertion. Okay, cool. How does that actually explain him reducing the plausibility? Like, I didn't really understand that. And after you finish that, like, it wouldn't even really be much important, because even if I were to grant you this, I'm not even sure why I can't just generate another hypothesis that expects equally the same data, or furthermore explains and actually accommodates for equal sets of the data, but just has higher priors, right? I mean, there's a few huge issues with your hypothesis that I'm not sure why you're just ducking. It doesn't actually have to be that deep. I'm just not sure what you're not getting.
You're questioning how it explains something. Can I ask, what are you asking for, like a particular theory of causation?
Yeah, so I'm just asking for like an inference that supports this.
An
or
inference?
for you to bridge this gap.
Yeah, an inference. What gap?
The gap between the exponent and the exponendum that you're claiming is there, because I don't really see how it explains this.
Okay. Do you agree that Bayesianism is a type of inference?
I'm not even sure what you're asking. I don't know why you're serving me to Bruce. You didn't say anything.
He interjected. You didn't hear him say it because
that's okay. You're schizo. What was your question?
My question was, do you grant Bayesianism as a type of inference?
Oh yeah. I don't know what that question means.
You don't know what it means.
No, I don't know what the question is intending to mean. What are you trying to say?
Do you think that if someone uses a quote-unquote Bayesian inference, do you agree that that is a valid type of inference that you would accept as an inference? Okay. Now, do you disagree with the Bayesian articulation that I gave earlier with the hypothesis?
I just didn't hear it.
I repeated it. This is why I asked you earlier if you could repeat it over and over. And then turns out you just weren't even paying attention, so I'll just repeat it one more time for you.
Wait.
In fact, not even... You can say wait. You can say wait while you get server muted, and you can talk to yourself. Now the inference is, here's the hypothesis. The hypothesis is that he's using the second atomic proposition to lower the credence of the first one by using the term but. Now hypothesis is that he's going with this process. That hypothesis is going to make two predictions, at least two predictions that I know of. One, that he's going to utilize a sarcastic term or sarcastic tone, and then two, that he's going to use the term but as opposed to another conjunctive term that he could have used. Like he could have said and, like he could have said, oh, I'm confused and your server muted, but he tries to say I'm confused but your server muted. So those are two predictions that it makes. At this point, I genuinely don't even think you know how predictions and hypotheses operate under a Bayesian inference. Now, do you agree that it makes those predictions, yes or no? Because there's no disagreeing on whether that's a type of Bayesian inference, and you've already conceded that, well, you didn't concede, but you acknowledged the truth that Bayesian inferences are valid. Do you agree it's going to make those predictions?
Yeah, so I already told you that I'm fine with this. I actually don't see any issue with this. I'm just not sure why I have a reason to believe this. I'm not saying that it's just impossible that it can't. If you're asking me if it does, I'm not saying how it does, but I'm fine with granting the fact that it does. I'm just not sure why I can't just posit another hypothesis. Actually, the hypothesis that I did posit and that Bruce posited earlier, seemingly enough, it would predict, not just predict, but it would expect the same facts and the same phenomenon that is being intended to be explained under your hypothesis, right? It would generate the same exact evidence. So I'm not sure why your hypothesis would be superior. Again, you claimed earlier, which I'm not sure why you didn't track this, but it's been written all over my stream. You had to claim earlier that it's actually quite obvious that this is the implication. And what I take that to mean is that your hypothesis is preferred. It's quite obvious that this is the case. I'm not really sure what reason I would have to believe this. I've been like outlining this out for you so many times, but you've just been muting me and like spurging over me. I'm completely fine with granting you this. This doesn't address what I'm saying. Do you understand that at least?
Okay, before I talk, yeah, now you're serving muted. And I just want to take some time to appreciate how you've gotten intellectually bitched on so many fronts in this conversation where you contended that it was a hypothesis. You said, I'm confused on how it's a hypothesis. You said that it was a very shitty hypothesis, or at least very strongly implied that it was a very shitty hypothesis, and I was using idiosyncratically. But now that I've explained how hypotheses work, and I've explained how fucking Bayesian inferences work to you, now you're just like cucked down to the proposition that it is a hypothesis by saying, oh, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I just don't see why it's better than other ones. Not to mention, you've also cucked down on another point where I asked you, okay, if there's another counter hypothesis, I'd love to hear it. I'll just falsify that one. I've asked you that 3 times, and after 3 times, it finally rattled at the back of your head to use this one. Now I can falsify this. Well, it's not going to make the same predictions because sarcasm is better expected under the hypothesis that he's trying to falsify something as opposed to just articulating a contrast. Now, we went into the definition of contrast earlier. We looked it up. We held hands and we looked it up together. Contrast is just something that is, or you could say a contrast that is not mutually exclusive or doesn't imply the negation of the other thing, which is what I'm hypothesizing. You could take a definition of contrast where it's just very, very different. Now, if he was saying, okay, these are 2 statements that are very, very different, that does not explain his sarcastic tone, which is a given fact, which is the first thing that he said that he used. He grants that he used a sarcastic tone, and my hypothesis explains that phenomena better than the counter hypothesis, which doesn't predict the fact that he would use a sarcastic tone just by saying an apple is not an orange. That's stupid. You're stupid. You're stuck on anime debate level philosophy, and it's really cringe. Please stop.
Yeah, I'm not sure what all of that like manic episode was. Like, I don't know why you're acting like this. But again, as I mentioned previously already, right? What you just told me, actually, I just want to be clear. What you just told me is that you were going to explain what about the hypothesis exactly is inconsistent. Or at least what about your hypothesis, what it seems to explain better. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you said is that it seems to account for the sarcastic tone. And what I take that to mean is that you're saying there's some additional reasoning that seems to explain it better, or that there's something that my hypothesis actually lacks and it fails to explain. I didn't exactly hear what that was, but you're not going to answer that. Let's be honest. You're just going to rant about some anime shit. So let's just grant you the fact that it does. Let's grant you this fact that you actually did generate some alternative hypothesis.
So you're cooking down again.
Right? I wasn't actually referring to...
Sorry, I interrupted. I apologize.
No, it's okay. So I wasn't actually referring to my hypothesis. I said Bruce's hypothesis earlier, to which we're explaining Bruce's action. So I'm not, in fact, sure what you're even trying to deliberate here. But it's just very, very confusing. What you said earlier is that it implies an oxymoron and that that's what the word but means. You said but means an oxymoron. I explained to you why that's not the case. I explained to you why actually but can be used in different terms to where it isn't the case. And when I asked you for why but would mean an oxymoron here, you didn't say anything. That's when you generated a hypothesis, a quote unquote hypothesis, to where you told me the hypothesis is he's using a second atomic proposition to lower the credences to the first atomic proposition. Now, what I asked you is, where exactly is the relationship being drawn between the explanation? You haven't explained that yet. I said that I'd be willing to be charitable to you, but I still want to hear that. I didn't say that I granted you that, right? But even under the idea and under the assumption that I grant you that, I'm just not hearing exactly why we have good reason to believe this hypothesis or grant you this. I mean, let's say that for whatever reason we can't generate an alternative hypothesis. Let's assume for a second that actually I have no competing hypothesis. That's not good reason to believe in yours, right? I mean, let's just take it this. Let's take it's just me and you in the desert, right? Randomly a grilled cheese drops on the floor. I give you a supporting hypothesis that explains actually why it drops on the floor, and I say that it was just desert cheese fairies. I mean, and let's say in this instance, you don't even actually have a competing hypothesis. I don't think that would be a reason for you to believe in mine, right? Sure, it would expect the data. Sure, that's okay. But that's not what's going to make a hypothesis successful. I'm just asking for why I should even believe this and what would even be the reason for granting you this. Because I don't even grant you the fact that he was doing this. I don't grant you the fact that these were his motivations. But I actually acknowledge what you said earlier. What you said earlier was that you weren't even claiming the fact that this was a successful hypothesis. I thought this was a successful analysis. You said it was just alleged, and that you actually used your social cues awareness to refer to this. But I said to you that that's completely fine. I'm not sure why this would be any reason. Like, sure, you can use your social cues to like infer that. That's completely fine. I'm not sure why it's a good inference or why I should have any reason to believe in this. I mean, there's just a whole lot of confusion and blunders here, but it's whatever.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I never made the case that he was actually using it to using the second atomic proposition to falsify the first atomic proposition. I said that I assumed that he was using an oxymoron, which he contended, and you jumped on that wagon and contended it as well. And I said that I'm just saying it's an oxymoron because it appears you're labeling, you're calling me out for using an oxymoron when I said that you're confused. But he took two facts. He said that I said that, or he can, hypothetically say that he's confused, and it's the case that I'm not talking because I'm in the side chat. He took those two facts and sarcastically repeated them together. Now, what was the reason that he used a sarcastic tone? And why did he use the term but as opposed to another conjunctive? He could have just said and. I've theorized and I've hypothesized about why these are the case. Now, when you ask a why question and you explain why something is the case, that is an explanation. That's a proposed explanation. I held your hand earlier and I spoke out to you the definition of a hypothesis, which is just a proposed explanation. Now, a proposed explanation, that's not necessarily one that is true. That's not something I'm arguing to be true. I'm just saying that I used obvious social cue awareness to get to the hypothesis, to get to that initial hypothesis. You bitched it down and eventually agreed that it was a hypothesis after being confused on it for a very long time. And now you're contending, and you keep on. You don't even know if you want to contend it or not. You keep getting bitched. You keep conceding that, okay, oh, well, I'm just going to grant that it's hypothesis for a second. Oh, why can't I just use another one? And I'm like, okay, here's the reason why any other one is stupid. And then you're like, well, I don't grant that it's a hypothesis in the first place. This is what we're going to continue to do. And then you're going to keep getting bitched on why it's a hypothesis. Then you're going to get bitched on why the counter hypotheses are stupid. But just one more time, and hopefully you're typing. Hopefully I won't have to explain it again, so I can just tell you to look up and read what you're typing. The hypothesis is a proposed explanation. Now, the probability of the explanation has been raised via Bayesian inference. You agree that it makes those predictions, you agree that it conforms to Bayesian inference, and you also agree that Bayesian inference is a type of inference that you would accept. These are all questions that you've already conceded on. You've already acknowledged the truth of these propositions that I've laid out thus far, and all you can do is just backtrack on these questions again and again and again. Now, I can explain to you the reason why the other one, because you're probably just going to say, you didn't even respond to the counter hypothesis thing. Even though I did respond to it, you're going to continuously do this over and over. Now, the reason why the other counter hypotheses are stupid is because they don't explain the fact that he was using a sarcastic tone. I've already said this. I think I've only said it once, so I'm not going to fault you for not tracking. Maybe it was your shitty internet, which displayed itself to be cutting out this entire time. So the reason why this hypothesis is better, and this is the third time, just so that I don't have to repeat it again, is that it explains his sarcastic tone, which another one does not explain the fact that he would be using a sarcastic tone. It would actually have equal credence on him using the term but and him using the term and. So, I mean, you can talk now. Wait, let me unserver remute you because you don't have the cordiality.
You did stutter there, Lucario.
Yeah, this is just so embarrassing. So listen, there's a few things to unpack here. First off, retard, what you mentioned earlier about a conjunction, you fucking idiot, is because you didn't hear me say coordinating. Okay, so listen, when I say that he's using the word but, okay, listen. When I said but, clearly what I said was that's just referring to some contrast, exception, or qualification. This is obvious. I gave the example of she is kind but firm. This is not an oxymoron, you monkey. You tried to argue earlier that it is an oxymoron because when people think of the word kind, they expect, or on the opposing end, they expect the word firm. So that's why we clarify but. That's not the case, right? We're just saying that there's a tension between them and a contrast between them because these two traits typically are not found together, but they can be together. They can be very true together. Now, if I said that someone had a cruel kindness, this is an oxymoron because there's an inherent contradiction in the phrase. There's something true of the definition of kind that is directly opposing to the definition of cruel. There is nothing in the definition of firm that is directly opposing to the definition of kind. You're just a monkey, and a very, very confused one at that. Anyone who claims that but and an oxymoron are equivalent are confused souls. We're not going to argue and bicker over this any further. This is very obvious English. Now, I don't know why you keep relying on the fact that you're using some kind of Bayesian inference. I don't care. Yes, you're using a framed Bayesian style. You're saying because he's lowering the credence in Proposition 1, that he's reinterpreting or elaborating to clarify Proposition 1, whatever. You're just saying with more data that you'd probably compute the likelihood. It doesn't really matter to me. That's completely okay. obviously, under this hypothesis, sure, the data could be expected. I'm not sure why this makes it a good hypothesis, right? You using some kind of Bayesian style doesn't immediately mean you're correct, right? Bayesian accounts itself, if you were to ask someone what a Bayesian account is, or what Bayesian probability is, or when we're using this, there's nothing in the content of that bias or favors or gives you a head start in the content of our actual debate. Actually has nothing to do with that. I can give you a completely different hypothesis that leads to completely different concerns while you're still using the same style, right? It wouldn't matter. So I don't know why you keep repeating that, right? But let's actually work on that. You are giving some kind of Bayesian style inference, whatever, cool. That's fine, cool. I'm asking you what reason we have to actually believe this. You told me that the reason why this hypothesis was better is because apparently it explains his tone while the other doesn't. Well, first off, I don't even grant that he had a sarcastic tone. He didn't grant that he had a sarcastic tone. But even if I did grant you that he had a sarcastic tone, that's completely okay. We can simply add to the other hypothesis that he simply wanted to be sarcastic because he was upset at you. And this would also be something that expects the same data. And if you're saying that it adds another commitment or some unnecessary entity that we'd have to clarify so it wouldn't be the preferred hypothesis, we could just get him in here. And he's going to grant the fact that this is the case. So you'd still be fucked. But listen, all this stuff is really irrelevant. All I'm asking you is, even if I didn't have a hypothesis, let's just grant the fact that I don't. Let's say that I'm just a stupid anime debater. I'm a monkey. That doesn't give me any reason to believe in your hypothesis. You idiot. You're just committing a last man standing fallacy, right? I don't really care if yours is the only hypothesis that we have to choose from. That doesn't immediately make yours good. I want to walk you through the grilled cheese analogy, but I just want to understand if you get what I'm trying to unpack here.
Okay, you're going to answer for me. Yeah, that was a really terrible point. Yeah, you did so horribly there. I'm using a sarcastic tone, but it really seems weird when I use a sarcastic tone when I say, oh, that was a terrible point. Oh yeah, that was a really bad point. It really seems weird when I do that, and when it seem weird when I do that. Well, it's because the sarcastic tone it's not indicative of something that's ironic or something that was oxymoronic. So when you give this hypothesis and you stipulate onto the hypothesis that he was solely using a sarcastic tone because he's upset with you, or because he's upset with me, the same way that I'm upset with you, well, just because I'm upset with you, that doesn't make the sense. That doesn't explain why I'm going to use a sarcastic tone in this context. That's not sufficient for me to use a sarcastic tone. And there's actually other criteria that would make more sense or give a better explanation as to why I would use a sarcastic tone. Because if I use a sarcastic tone, and I'm not trying to imply that two statements are ironic or contradictory or oxymoronic in any way, that seems weird. Just like in the back of your head, you thought it seemed weird when I said, oh, that was a terrible point, Archie. Really, really terrible job there. That doesn't make sense. And it's the case. Well, you understand that I'm upset with you. Well, I'm upset because you keep repeating yourself and you're doing terribly in the conversation. You wasted my time by interjecting on a conversation that wasn't part of yours, but you just wanted a little wow factor in front of your friends, and then you ended up getting blown the fuck out on it over and over again. But yeah, that's why I'm upset with you. But just because I'm upset with you does not mean it does not even predict that I would use a sarcastic tone in the slightest. Now you want to contend the proposed phenomena, which is that he used a sarcastic tone, and it's on recording. That was one of the points that he made. We concurred that he used a sarcastic tone, and I use that as a premise for the further sort of implications that I was giving earlier, that he's labeling the statements. I don't know who's talking. You kind of sound like Pluto, if I'm not going to lie, but I'd like you to stop. But,
no, I was just pointing out that it was a stutter.
Hey, man, that's ableist. I don't appreciate the ableism.
No, I wasn't adding any sort of normative
you
loading.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that you stuttered.
Black person. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, there's one part, and then there's actually another thing. You asking, okay, what's the reason for your hypothesis? Well, the reason for my hypothesis is going to be credence levels. I take credence levels to be reason for belief. At least it's a type of reason for belief. Now, something that raises credence levels is, when you raise the probability of something, when you raise the chances of it being true. So when you raise the chances of a proposition being true, that meets the criteria for credence levels, which is hopefully what you mean by reason to accept a belief is inclusive of credence levels. If not, that's a whole issue, which I wouldn't be surprised if you rejected it. You're the kind of idiot who didn't even pick up on what the fuck a hypothesis was for 20 minutes, so I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't include credence levels as a type of reason that you're asking for. But if it's the case that credence levels are sufficient for your semantics of reason, then I have met those things because I've raised the probability of that hypothesis being true via the Bayesian inference that you bitched down on. Now, I know it could just be raising one hypothesis. That doesn't do much. That's enough for me, at least. Okay, I don't think he left, but that's enough for me, at least with my own priors. But what I'm going to further do is I'm going to lower the probability of your stupid hypothesis. And you can backtrack and say, oh, it's not my hypothesis after I blow it out of the waters, and you say, oh, it was his hypothesis. I'm just entertaining it. That's stupid. You presented it in the conversation for some stupid reason. And so I'm just going to refer to it as yours. Now, the reason why this one has been lowered is in order to explain the data that has been presupposed by both me and Bruce, you're going to have to add another postulate onto that hypothesis. Another postulate, which I already clarified, has no explanatory power whatsoever. That postulate lowers the probability of your hypothesis all else equal. Now, that's if you accept Occam's razor. And now, if you don't accept Occam's razor, I actually have a set of premises that logically conclude with Occam's razor being probability conducive. Now, I just want to clarify, you're too bitch-made to contend that. You're too bitch-made to contend any of the other points that I made, and so now I'm just going to watch you spurg over.
I don't know what this like weird mute thing you're doing is, but like I'm not really going to address most of that gibberish that you said. I mean, if you're just talking about credence levels, I mean, obviously I can grant you that hypothesis, right? And sure, it expects it, but my priors that I assigned to the hypothesis are just so absolutely low that it's still a sufficiently low hypothesis, right? To where it could just be disregarded compared to whatever, my hypothesis or whatever, right? I could simply just say in some weird sense that even though a competing hypothesis does predict the observed data well, my prior probability, right, is so low that the posteriori probability, even after updating, remains low enough that I can just reasonably ignore it compared to my hypothesis. So that is something that is just going to be a fuckload for you to deal with. But even then, it still doesn't even address the main issue. I mean, the fact that you made a terrible blunder that your hypothesis is, for the most part, it does bear on, which is the definition in the terms of but that we're actually using. Now, obviously, you made the statement that contrast can be easily reducible to opposing ideas, which is fine. I'm just not sure what you take opposing ideas to be. If you take opposing ideas to be something of the like, to where they're just contradictory ideas, to where they're inherently contradictory towards each other, often like due to impact, like something like a deafening silence, or something like a jumbo shrimp, or something like that. That's completely fine, but I just don't think that that's what most people use when they're referring to a contrast. We can contrast many things that aren't necessarily like oxymorons or are inherently contradictory in nature, to which I gave you the example of the she is kind but she is firm, which I've like reiterated multiple times to you, but I haven't actually heard a response to. Obviously, initially, like the only response that you did try to even claim is that when we think initially of these things, obviously we're just going to think firm is the opposite of kind. But I'm not even so sure that's a good reason. In fact, I'm not even sure that anyone who doesn't already have the background assumption that they are different or is even going to accept that, right? It just seems like that's something that's just baked into your personal perspective, which is fine. But I'm just like, either I'm going to question the empirics on that, to which you're not going to provide, or you're just gonna have to prove in some weird way that but is equivalent to an oxymoron, or it can be reducible, at least if not in every instance, in this particular instance, to an oxymoron, to which you haven't really implied or given inference for, at least. That's really all I'm saying. Quite useless.
Okay, beautiful. So to respond to you made a lot of horrible points here. But when you say that, okay, the first one that I really want to that I got a little bit excited about, I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to respond to this. This is so stupid. You said that you can talk about the credence levels of my hypothesis being raised, but that is not sufficient for your credence. That's not sufficient for your beliefs, because you might just have insane priors against it, such that even with the probability raising that I've done, that's not enough for you to believe it. But I never said that you should believe it. You just asked me, I just said that I used obvious social cue awareness, and I made an inference as to why he's labeling what I did as an oxymoron. I never even asserted it to be the case. I just said it seems like an oxymoron. And the definition of oxymoron is just something that seems contradictory. So inherently, I'm talking about my priors, and I clarified over and over and over in this conversation that I'm not actually affirming that it is the case. I'm just explaining the questions that you've asked me. So I'm not trying to convince you of it. So you talking about your own beliefs and your own conviction, that's stupid. And it lacks on social cue awareness, because if you remembered how the conversation started, it was never my project to convince you of it. It was my project to talk about the reason why I had a conviction of it and why I said it seems like an oxymoron. So yeah, that's talking about my priors, not your priors. You fucked them up. And then you also talked about different examples of, another blunder was that you assumed my definition of opposing was something that is, not assumed, I'm not going to go that far, but you seem to take for granted that my definition of opposing was things that are inherently contradictory, when no, I don't think that's the case. And if you listen to my definition of opposing earlier, I clarified that opposing are things that seem to imply the negation of the other. And I'll just speak it very slowly this time, because maybe I'm speaking a little too fast for you. So my definition, or what I understand of opposing, are things that seem to imply the negation of the other. Now, this is supported not only by oxymoron, but also by the definitions of like but, where you have those conjunctives. Where it's not a strict negation, because if it was inherently contradictory, then I just wouldn't believe in but statements. I wouldn't believe in however statements, and I wouldn't believe in oxymorons in general. But I do believe in oxymorons, and I can actually pull up another oxymoron. I give an example that seems to imply the opposite of the other one, where you take bittersweet. Now, something can be bitter and it can be sweet. There's no contradiction at all. It's just that when something is bitter, that in your mind, you usually don't think about things that are sweet. In fact, you start thinking about things that are pretty not sweet. When you think about things that are sweet, you kind of think about things that are not so bitter. And so those imply the negation of the other. It's not a strict conditional. It's not a subjective conditional, but, it's just not even a logical conditional. It's not a strict conditional in that sense, but I don't know why I'm saying conditional, implication in that sense. So yeah, those are things that imply the negation of the other. That's a negation of another stupid point that you made. And to respond to your other example, where I think it was like firm but kind, that's what I explained earlier. You did a good job of repeating it. I'm glad you can finally repeat a point that I made, where I make the same point over and over, and maybe on the third time it registers in your brain, where I said that when I think of something that is firm, what I said is that, and actually, I'm backtracking now. You didn't repeat what I said. You strong. I didn't say that those are opposites. I just said that, and you can go back on the recording. I just said usually when I think of something firm, I'm not thinking about something that is kind. Or when I think of something that's kind, I usually think of things that are not very firm. That's what I told you, and that's been precogged. That's been expected under my definition of opposing, which you can't keep up on. You keep on making these assumptions and running with them in your, and it looks really fucking terrible. Maybe those would work on someone like or Rizza. Stick to those people again. Stay out of my league.
I'm just not really sure what all that is. I mean, if all you're saying is that you're warranted in believing your hypothesis privately, sure, that's okay. You're warranted in being a fucking retard. That's okay. I mean, any person can be warranted in any retarded belief, given some retarded background commitments or assumptions that you have like baked into there. But that's not really going to matter to me. That's not going to be convincing to me. And quite frankly, you just blundered that. What you just told me is that, yeah, you're fine with, obviously in the sense of bittersweet, there being some kind of baked in notions of opposite, opposite concepts, right? Obviously, when you think of something bitter, you're probably not going to think of something sweet. You made the commitment that this same relation can be seen when we reference someone who is firm but kind, right? I'm not sure what you're talking about there. I'm not sure how you even reason to that. To me, it just seems like you said, okay, well, obviously that's the case when we think of this. But I'm not sure what's so obvious about this. I'm not even sure what the empirics on this is. I'm not going to go on a whole tangent session. I just want you to at least give some argument or some convincing. If not, then we could just completely end this. You just haven't been convincing.
Yeah, you forgot the task that you asked earlier. You said that I clarified to you that I'm not affirming, and this was like the first thing we talked about. You were trying to LARP as someone who was cordial, but we all know you aped out. Come on, Archie. It's like you could drop the LARP. We know who you are, man. But yeah. So earlier when you were LARPing at somebody who's cordial, you were like, oh no, I'm not. I understand that you're not trying to convince it. I just want to ask, like, in your head, like, what was the process there? And you wanted to ask, like, okay, where was the oxymoron in that sense? And then I gave you the process. And that's what we've been talking about. I gave you the process, and I gave you the apparent contradiction, which is division for the definition of oxymoron, because it's just something that is an apparent contradiction. And then another stupid point, after you completely humiliated yourself and forgot what I gave in response to your firm but sweet example, not only did you forget my response, but you forgot the fucking reason why you brought up firm but sweet. You were supposed to give an oxymoron. Now, maybe it's the case that you were trying to give like just a but statement, but I'm labeling it as like an oxymoron. I want to get to the point. Do you think that's the case where that's not an oxymoron? Yes or no? You're on mute.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna mute you again. Sorry, I changed my mind. You took too long. That might be perm abuse. I'll think about that later. But yeah, so the reason why it's an oxymoron and the reason why I label things like bittersweet as tantamount to firm but kind, those are kind of oxymoronic. Now, there's degrees on how oxymoronic something can be. I take that to be pretty low, but usually when I think of something firm, I'm not really calling it kind. Or if I think of a firm person, I'm not really going to think of them as kind. In fact, I'm going to think the opposite. I'm going to have like even lower priors on them being kind, and vice versa. So that's the reason why I would label it as an oxymoron. Well, not be the the type of oxymoron that's like one of the I guess like higher levels of oxymoron, because again I think it varies, but those are contingent on how strong an implication one element has on the other one. This is actually pretty basic stuff that I'm not surprised you'd be confused on. I can keep educating you if you want. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was, but I mean, if you keep for some reason re-clarifying that actually you're not trying to affirm there's a contradiction, you're just saying there's apparently a contradiction. But we kind of already baked that into the definition of what an oxymoron is, so you recapitulating that to me is kind of useless. Yeah, it's the case that you claim there's an apparent contradiction, but that's what we're talking about, whether there is an oxymoron or not. So you don't have to keep repeating that. And on the case of you apparently claiming that, it's an oxymoron, or that at least there's some degree to which something can be oxymoronic, and you believe that this is oxymoronic because when you initially think of firm and kind, you get what you think to be like opposing notions. I don't really care about what you think or what you believe, not in this sense. I don't think it's a good reason because you intuitively think this is the case. That's completely fine. I mean, again, I could just ask you, okay, under the assumption that someone just doesn't have the same background assumptions as you, and that this isn't some baked concept into their mind, what good reason would they have to believe that? And if you're just going to repeat yourself and dodge away from that and say, oh, well, they don't have to, I do, that's fine. Like, again, I don't take that to be a good reason. That's not convincing us of anything. That's not interesting.
Okay, beautiful. Now that we understand you've been shadowboxing this entire time by telling me, oh, that's not convincing, when my job wasn't conviction, and my job was to just answer the questions that you decided to ask me for some reason. It was a very socially inept of you to ask me those questions in the first place, but I entertained it just for the sake of blowing you the fuck out on another conversation like we have previously every single time. So to respond to the substance now, you say that, okay, this like wouldn't be like or like you're curious on why I'll label it an oxymoron, and you say that, oh, well, if all you mean by oxymoron is just that, well, it seems to you that they're contradictory, then you don't really care about that. But again, the definition of oxymoron was just an apparent contradiction, not an actual contradiction. And so you fucked up on your own language. You fucked up on your own language so much that I need clarification to even confirm that you know what you're talking about. Is it the case that you want me to motivate reasons why there is a contradiction? Or do you just want me to motivate why there is an apparent contradiction, which is the definition of an oxymoron, which I've been trying to motivate this entire time? But were you actually under the assumption that I've been trying to motivate the fact there is a contradiction anywhere? I think his internet like finally tapped out. I don't know why. I always assume that when people take like a really long break from debating. Oh yeah, it is your bad. Shut up. I don't know why. I always assume that when people take like a really long break from, I don't know why. I just feel like they would come back better. Like that's kind of like Beyblade. Like you haven't seen a character in so long, and they come back. You're like, oh my gosh, he's gotta be better. I wonder what he's got. It's pretty rare that they come back fucking worse. Like unironically, I didn't know how you could get much worse after just like aping into your microphone in every conversation you've ever had. But somehow it actually did get worse. But yeah, continue. Oh, I think he's on Deafin.